Scales are probably one of the most emotive topics for musicians. Irrespective of age or level, performer or teacher, with memories of brain freeze in exams or lessons, humiliation when asked whether you play or know your scales, observing fellow musicians within a masterclass as you wait outside the exam room, or the students before you playing their scales fluently and seemingly without effort. Crucially, it is this idea that effort is not required, partnered with the notion that talented and gifted musicians do not have to apply effort and rigour to scales or indeed any other area of their playing. This is the greatest and most damaging misconception, and one that has far-reaching consequences beyond the learning and playing of scales. But what I have personally found in my long and extensive experience of teaching, that the inability to play scales undermines both the self-belief and confidence of a player, while also impacting on efficiency and security of facility. This tutorial, which is devoted to the topic of scales, is not going to offer you a quick and easy solution, just like those instructions which say in 3 easy steps and turn out to be neither easy nor 3 steps. The same applies to scales. This, added to the often pressured timescale in which scales must be learnt, is a recipe for frustration and erratic learning. What I will give you is the science behind playing a scale, which will have far-reaching consequences, as well as carrying a guarantee that you will become proficient in playing your scales. With confidence in the successful outcomes I have had from students of all ages and levels, who started their journey of learning scales with fear and resentment, have not only ended up being able to play their scales confidently, but also with a pleasure in the process. How, you might ask incredulously? Because scales are made up of lots of little steps, with each step like an agenda on a checklist. What does an agenda on a checklist give you? An abbreviated instruction or piece of information which then you get to tick off. What this crucially gives you, aside from the ability to play your scales fluently and confidently, is also the feeling of competence. Competence is the fuel which drives motivation, like the raising agent in a cake. If you feel you are up to the task, resistance will fall away and self-belief will take its place. From that point, you are cooking on gas with determination to tackle the job in hand, learning your scales. There are 2 key elements in this thorough approach to learning scales: the skill to organise and the model for a step-by-step systematic process. In other words, a plan of action. The plan involves organising information, and the action involves a systematic process. Organising the information falls into 3 clear stages: establishing what you do know, adding new knowledge by building on existing knowledge, and assimilating the old and the new. This is based on the model of learning developed by the wonderful Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget, whose work became immensely influential, particularly in the teaching of young children. Let's start with establishing the knowledge you know. This is the bit that so often is not given the value it deserves, overshadowed by what you don't know. But this is missing a seriously reassuring element in the learning journey, the bit that actually gives you a head start. The following tutorial given by Chris Jolly will go into greater detail in how to build key signatures, circles of fourths and fifths. He has got some fabulous explanations and diagrams planned, so I'm going to leave that to him. For now, I will simply remind you what you will almost certainly know, that major scales have key signatures made up of either sharps or flats. And here is the great bit of news, that each time you learn a major key signature, you have automatically learnt its relative minor. While Chris Jolly, in his tutorial on scales, will go into building key signatures and key relationships, for now I'm going to select two scales, B flat major and E major. From existing knowledge, you might know that major scales either have flats or sharps. You might also know that B flat major has two flats and E major has four sharps, but at this point have brain freeze on which two flats and which four sharps. The circles of fifths for sharps and circles of fourths for flats, that is, counting up a perfect fifth and perfect fourth respectively from C, is the first safety net prompt to break the spell of brain freeze. The second is the simple but super powerful safety net prompt rhyme, which gives you the order of the sharps and flats, like Father Charles goes down and ends battle for sharps, and for flats, battle ends and down goes Charles's father. Lots of versions of this rhyme exist, all doing the same job. So, having established what you know and perhaps also added new information, imagine you have a document of information waiting to be downloaded and filed. Filing systems are incredibly personal to the individual user. Have you ever tried to find a document a member of the family or friend has asked you to retrieve, which they need urgently? Nightmare! Yet, if we are honest, while our filing systems might seem totally logical to us, for someone else it could be totally baffling. That is where the concept of organisation is so important, as quick and efficient retrieval relies on having an organised filing information system. Visualise standing in your lesson or exam and imagine, although this might have happened, knowing that B flat major has flats but forgetting which, or knowing that E major has sharps but forgetting how many. Retrieving the safety net prompt rhyme and the safety net prompt circle of fifths from the filing system in your brain is the lifesaver and will reconnect you to the forgotten information. Playing a scale reliably and confidently is all about organising and process. I said this earlier and I will remind you again, because unlike what is so often thought, scales are not about memory, they are about retrieval. The systematic process, systematic meaning orderly step-by-step process, will then go on to retrieve the resource of now assimilated organised knowledge, ready for the next stage, playing your selected scale. The systematic process will then enable you to retrieve what will become the informational instruction, like a voice inside your head telling you what to do every step of the way. Yes, every step of the way. I break the playing process into 4 stages. 1, establishing the scale you are going to play. Now, that might seem obvious, but with potentially time pressures and having lots of different scales demanding your attention, focus can be seriously compromised. Playing a scale demands focus. So, having selected the scale you're going to play, that scale and only that scale must be the focus for your attention. 2, downloading the organised information that will inform what is in that scale. Use the rhyme to help. There is no shame at all. On the contrary, the aim of the game is to retrieve the information efficiently and confidently. This is like superfood highway. When I said that learning scales will have lots of opportunities to feel competence, each of these steps is it. 3. After establishing sharps or flats, how many and which, the next stage is fingering the scale and saying, preferably out loud, but in your head if you feel self-conscious, the name of the note as you finger each note. At this stage, the organised resource of information has been focused on notes themselves. In the process of playing, you will have some practical instructions to add a technical demand. Using my own discipline of clarinet and saxophone as an example, when fingerings has 2 options which might cause confusion or doubt, like B flat major on the saxophone, specify the fingering like side key, or on the clarinet playing E major, use right hand little finger for E or B. This will reinforce an informational instruction which might get forgotten with the information overload. This will then become part of the organised resource of knowledge instructing the process. 4. The final stage. Yes, you've guessed it, playing the scale. But, and this is crucial, saying the names of the notes in your head with the added relevant technical instruction while you play. I cannot emphasise this more strongly as developing the skill to sync brain with fingers. This will ensure you stay safe playing your scales, which will then extend to other areas of your playing. Once you have gone through this process of syncing each note with the playing of the note, this will then develop into thinking in groups of notes. This is actually called chunking, which is a concept I will cover in the exercises tutorial later in the series. I will finish by reminding you of an important factor about all areas of performance, that it involves risk. Musical performance might not seem an extreme sport, such as climbing the rock face of El Capitan without any harnesses, as Alex Honnold famously did. He was not a risk taker, but rather in his preparation did everything to reduce risk and, most crucially, know every hand and foothold. The same euphoric feeling of accomplishment which Alex Honnold felt when he reached the summit can be yours when you complete each scale. There might have been a small hesitation where you needed to stop and think what note comes next, or correct a small slip. That should be reason to positively affirm your progress in averting or correcting an error as the skill of self-awareness increases. The fear of making a mistake is a destructive distraction. Maintaining focus on what you are doing every step of the way is the greatest antidote in diffusing irrelevant and negative thinking, sometimes referred to in science as the third voice, like talking to yourself in the third person. We must learn to tame being angry with ourselves when we are learning, as it really does not help our cause, either in practice or performance. It only leaves me to say that I hope this tutorial has been helpful and most importantly has given you a small taste of how science and music really do make a harmonious partnership. I hope you will join me for the next tutorial in the series Customise Your Music Warm-Up, where the next topic will be exercises. Until then, I wish you well in pursuit of excellence in all you do.